The year is 1942. Deep inside a hidden research compound on the outskirts of Manchuria, Japan's Imperial Army was preparing for something the world had never seen before. While the war raged across the Pacific, a group of scientists and soldiers worked in silence, chasing an idea born from desperation and madness. They called it Project Zōen. The goal was simple but horrifying: to create an army that needed no training, no rations, and no fear, only instinct. The weapon: monkeys. Captured from the jungles of Southeast Asia, hundreds of macaques and baboons were brought to secret facilities operated by Unit 731, the same division known for its human experiments. These animals weren't research subjects anymore. They were soldiers in the making. Japanese biologists began conditioning them, day after day, to perform battlefield tasks, crawling under tanks, delivering explosives, even carrying vials of deadly pathogens across enemy lines. The tests were ruthless. The scientists pushed the limits of control, trying to turn chaos into strategy. But the war monkeys didn't behave as planned. The moment the experiments began, chaos ruled the labs. The animals would rip off their harnesses, scream for hours, or attack the handlers. Some soldiers swore the monkeys understood what was happening, that they could sense death all around them. Still, the Imperial Army pressed on. The idea was too tempting: a living weapon that could move undetected through dense jungle, drop bombs on Allied trenches, and vanish before the enemy even knew what hit them. So they tried again, this time with even more sinister intent. Biological agents were introduced. The monkeys were injected with diseases, fitted with syringes, and released into isolated test fields filled with caged pigs and goats to simulate Allied troops. Within days, entire test zones were dead. The infection spread fast. What started as an experiment in intelligence had turned into an outbreak. The project spiraled out of control. Panic filled the compound as soldiers began to fall sick. Some monkeys escaped the lab and vanished into the forest. The Japanese command ordered the entire facility burned, and every living creature inside exterminated. But not all were destroyed. Allied intelligence records years later described patrols finding charred remains of small cages, chemical vials, and bones, both animal and human, scattered across old Manchurian ruins. A few American POWs who survived nearby camps claimed they saw soldiers carrying cages filled with angry little soldiers before the camp burned. When the war ended, Japan denied everything. All documents tied to Unit 731 and Project Zōen were destroyed. But whispers remained. Soviet investigators later uncovered fragments of reports describing biological experiments involving primates. No names, no faces, just evidence of something unspeakable. Some historians believe the experiments were an attempt to mimic what the Nazis were doing in Europe, weaponizing life itself. Others say it was darker, a reflection of humanity's hunger for control, even over nature. To this day, villagers near the site of the old facility report strange sightings. Packs of unusually intelligent monkeys, moving in formation, appearing and disappearing in the forests near Harbin. No one can prove it. But the old men who live there still warn visitors not to wander after dark. Because in those woods, the ghosts of Project Zōen are said to remain. Not human. Not animal. Something in between. And all born from war. Under the ash of the burned facility, silence fell, but only for a while. Months later, when Soviet forces advanced through Manchuria, they stumbled upon what they believed to be a destroyed Japanese weapons depot. The smell was strange: not oil, not gunpowder, something living, something rotten. When the first soldier stepped into the wreckage, he found hundreds of rusted cages, metal tags melted into the ground, and strange notebooks filled with sketches of primates. The notes were half-burned, but one word appeared again and again: Zōen. As the Soviets combed through the ruins, a few soldiers reported movement in the trees above them, shapes leaping from branch to branch, watching. They raised their rifles, but there was nothing. Just the whisper of the wind and the creak of metal. That night, when the camp was set, something tore through the tents. Supplies scattered. Ammunition crates overturned. The guards fired blindly into the darkness, hearing only screeches and the rustle of leaves. By morning, 2 men were missing. No blood, no tracks. Just their rifles lying in the mud. The Soviets sealed the site. They called it cursed, forbidden ground. But the Red Army didn't leave empty-handed. Hidden among the debris, they found one surviving specimen, a juvenile macaque shivering, wrapped in a blood-stained harness. Its eyes were unlike anything the soldiers had seen, calm, focused, almost human. The creature was shipped to Moscow for study. It never made it. The transport plane crashed somewhere over Siberia, and the wreckage was never recovered. But years later, Soviet biological files mention an unregistered specimen matching the same description, listed only as subject K22. Meanwhile, in Japan, surviving members of Unit 731 scattered across the country, changing their names and vanishing into society. Some went into academia, others medicine, and a few, quietly, into government research. None ever spoke publicly. But declassified U.S. documents suggest that during post-war interrogations, one captured scientist admitted to animal-based bio-warfare experiments in Manchuria. The files were buried deep within classified archives, sealed under national security. Decades later, in the 1980s, when construction began near the old compound, workers unearthed strange bones, not quite human, not quite animal. The remains were quickly confiscated by authorities, and the site was shut down again, declared a radiation hazard zone. But stories spread. Locals whispered about monkeys seen moving in groups, carrying objects, working together to build nests unlike any normal primate would. Some even claimed to have heard metal clinking in the woods at night, as if something still wore its harness. In 1998, a Japanese journalist named Kenji Watanabe tried to uncover the truth. He traced survivors of Unit 731, searched through university archives, and even ventured to Manchuria himself. His last letter home mentioned he had found something alive, near the ruins. He was never seen again. To this day, only fragments of his recordings have surfaced, grainy footage showing dark shapes in the fog, eyes reflecting the camera light, and a soft, rhythmic sound, like breathing. Then silence. Some believe what he found were the descendants of those first war monkeys, evolved, hidden, surviving in secret for generations. Others dismiss it as myth, a ghost story born from guilt and secrecy. But every legend begins with truth. And somewhere in the shadows of forgotten wars, truth still breathes. Beneath the cold fog of Manchuria, time forgot what humans left behind. The ruins of the old Japanese compound still stood, half buried under vines and soil, twisted steel, shattered glass, and walls marked with strange claw patterns. Local children dared each other to enter, but none ever crossed the broken gates. They said the air inside felt wrong, heavy, quiet, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. Decades after the war, when modern researchers began to study wartime archives, whispers of Project Zōen resurfaced. Officially, it didn't exist. No government claimed responsibility. No files were found. But then a retired Soviet officer came forward, his hands shaking as he held an old photograph. A line of cages, each tagged with numbers and the Japanese Imperial seal. Inside one cage was a creature staring straight into the camera, eyes wide open. Its face, almost human. The officer spoke of strange orders during his service in 1946, units sent into forests to contain biological remnants. He remembered the screams at night, the sounds of automatic fire echoing through the trees, and the smell of burning fur. They weren't just animals, he said. They fought back. For years the world ignored stories like his. But in the late 2000s, satellite images began to reveal something odd. Structures hidden deep in the forests near Harbin, overgrown but intact. Heat signatures. Movement. Too precise to be random wildlife. Chinese investigators claimed it was just old military bunkers. But independent analysts who examined the data noticed symmetrical paths, clearings, and what appeared to be clusters, small, organized, moving together. Theories exploded online. Some claimed the Japanese experiments had succeeded in breeding a generation of intelligent primates that survived the fall of the empire. Others believed the Soviets captured the technology and continued it in secret under the guise of Cold War research. One leaked document from 1953, supposedly from the KGB archives, described Operation White Fang, a mission to retrieve experimental specimens from former Japanese laboratories. It mentioned adaptive primate organisms, capable of coordinated movement and tool usage. The report ended abruptly with pages blacked out and one final sentence. Containment failed. The more historians dug, the darker it became. Surviving Japanese medical officers who were interviewed late in life would pause, go silent, and refuse to speak when asked about animal experimentation. One man muttered only a few words before breaking down completely. Not monkeys, not anymore. In 2015, a small expedition of Chinese archaeologists gained permission to excavate the supposed remains of Unit 731's animal testing facility. What they found was unsettling: rusted restraints, fragments of glass syringes, and metal harnesses engraved with both Japanese and English letters. It suggested collaboration that no one could explain. Among the debris was a sealed crate, almost intact, buried under meters of concrete. Inside were bones, dozens of them all belonging to primates. But they were wrong. Their skulls were elongated, jaw structures shifted, and several showed signs of surgical alteration. Wires fused into bone. Screws in the joints. Someone had tried to redesign them. A week later, the lead researcher vanished. His notes were confiscated. The dig site was sealed by military order. No official statement was ever released. But fragments of his journal leaked to the public. The final entry was short, written in a rush. They were evolving. We thought the project died with the war. We were wrong. After that, conspiracy theorists and historians alike began calling the site the monkey's grave. Locals claimed to hear strange cries at night, not quite human, not quite animal, echoing through the trees. Hunters who ventured too far reported seeing figures moving upright in the mist, silent and fast. Some swore they saw them carrying metallic objects, remnants of the old harnesses. By 2020, the Chinese government officially restricted access to the entire region. Unmanned drones sent into the area either malfunctioned or returned with corrupted data. One captured 2 frames of something running through the fog, a humanoid figure covered in fur, eyes reflecting red in the infrared light. The footage was immediately classified. But a single still frame was leaked. It showed a shape standing among the ruins, one arm resting against the concrete, head tilted slightly, watching the drone. Whether it was a hoax, a legend, or something far worse, no one knows. But in every war, humanity creates monsters, sometimes from its enemies, sometimes from itself. And sometimes those monsters outlive the men who made them. The forest remains silent now. But if you walk close enough to the rusted fences when the night is still and the wind doesn't move, you can hear it, a low rhythmic sound like breathing. Slow. Heavy. Watching. Because Project Zōen was never just an experiment. It was evolution, forced by war. And evolution never stops.